Yes, I'm going to see the Batman for a second time today, 5 p.m. Release here in Cyprus today. Spoiler review as soon as I get home, live on my channel. I'm so excited. Now, what did I do with my chair? Welcome back to Movies TV Mad, and of course you can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. Welcome to Thursday's edition of the DCEU Daily. Yes, the Batman is out today here in Cyprus, and I'll be going to watch it. And I'm so excited to bring you finally my spoiler-driven thoughts in a live video. I may, before or after, record a spoiler review as a pre-recorded thing to put on my channel as well. So let's go. This via Matt Reeves proves he puts the fan experience first, unlike most storytellers and directors today. Dear theatre owners and projectionists, I'm truly excited to bring you the Batman exclusively in theatres. I worked with my team for a very long time to create a unique story that had a very specific look to Gotham and these great characters. The lighting and colour timing that went into capturing these looks was very important to me, because transporting our audience to a place they've never experienced before is why they come to the cinema. To ensure your audiences enjoy the film the way I intended it, please have your projection collaborated to achieve at least 14 FL. Let's give the audience the best experience possible. Thank you and enjoy the show. Matt Reeves, WB. Wow, this guy isn't messing about, is he? He's actually written to theatre owners, right? He's posted it on his, I'm assuming, I don't know where he put it. But anyway, so for example, I don't think theatre owners here in Cyprus are going to know anything about this. I don't expect them to calibrate the Batman as how it should be. If I'm lucky, this is Cyprus, isn't it? But still really excited to go and see this movie today in IMAX. A DC movie is such a huge event. I mean, it's just so special, isn't it? And I always make sure to go to cinema to see any DC project or movie. I can miss a Marvel movie. I can wait, right? I didn't see Spider-Man No Way Home until I went to the UK recently, and I did a review for you all. So it's such a special day for me, even though I've seen a test screening that I believe one or two scenes that I saw in the test screening have been cut. We'll discuss that tonight in my spoiler review. Just to say, that message to theatre owners just sums up Matt Reeves and his priorities here. We have a very special talent in charge of a Batman universe, of a whole DC universe, a whole Earth 2. And the experience that you and me have is very important to him. But you know how we've been saying in our live chats, and a lot of you have been saying to me, Mick, I've been to see the Batman, meaning you lot, and it felt like the Arkham games. Well, guess what? That's exactly the direction we are going in here. Because Matt Reeves confirms to the media that the second of the HBO Max, the Batman spin-offs, will focus on Arkham Asylum. This is something we've wanted for a very long time. Now, I'm not sure what Ben Affleck's The Batman was going to do with Arkham. We all suspected that the whole film may even be focused, or a lot of the film may be focused in Arkham, and that would have been sensational. Maybe one day Ben can do the movie. Clearly now he doesn't want to. That's what we're led to believe. Anyway, well, Ezra Miller doesn't believe that. But anyway, let's see what's going on with this. But this is very, very exciting. And this will excite many, many millions of Batman stans. The Batman's Matt Reeves confirmed second HBO Max spin-off will focus on Arkham Asylum. With only 2 days before the Batman is finally unleashed on the world, you could think of the hype around Matt Reeves' newest, and if early reactions are to be believed, grimiest cinematic adventures for the Caped Crusader. However, Reeves has stirred the hype, pot even more, confirming that one of the 2 HBO Max spin-offs in development will be tied to Arkham Asylum, the infamous mental health facility that stores Gotham's most volatile criminals. This series will connect to the GCPD. So we don't know if this is actually the GCPD show or something else. Anyway, and reportedly explore just how deep the corruption goes on Gotham City Police. So it is about GCPD, police force. We're also getting a Penguin prequel series that will follow Oswald Cobblepot's rise through the criminal underworld and see Colin Farrell reprise his role from the upcoming film. However, Reeves' prime concern at the moment is getting us to love his version of Batman. In an interview with the Toronto Sun, Reeves stated, "We're doing this Penguin series, and one of the great things about that is Colin Farrell. He's like you've never seen him. He's so incredible, and he's a scene stealer along the way. We thought maybe we could do it as a series, so I talked to HBO Max and showed them Colin in the movie and spoke to them about what this could be, and they said, let's do it, unsurprisingly. We're doing that, and we're doing another series that connects to Arkham Asylum. We are talking and thinking about the next movie, but to be honest with you, at the moment, I really want the audience to connect with this, and I really believe they will, because Rob is an incredible Batman. And yes, I connected to it, and Rob is an incredible Batman. He certainly is." Reeves has been through quite a journey on the road to Batman's release, initially coming to direct the film way back when Ben Affleck was still attached to star in it. Reeves had a wholly different vision for the project than original director Affleck, who had departed the role due to personal reasons. Since then, Reeves has promised us something completely unique from other cinematic interpretations, the first sign of which was casting the seemingly out of left field Robert Pattinson in the lead role. The internet erupted into disbelief when the Twilight guy was announced in the lead, but those who have paid attention to Pattinson's career know that he's spent the years since the Twilight saga ended challenging himself as an actor with small but gritty indie projects that showed his range. Also for the Toronto Sun, Reeves had the following to say: "I had followed Rob's work because he teamed up with so many interesting filmmakers and made really interesting choices after becoming a pop culture icon. He went in a different way, working with Claire Denis, High Life, David Cronenberg, Cosmopolis, Maps to the Stars, and my friend James Gray, The Lost City of Z," or Z as they put it. Along with Pattinson's casting, Reeves also wanted the Batman to take place in its own universe rather than be tied to the DCEU, as was originally planned. He stated that the film takes inspiration from classics like Taxi Driver and The French Connection, alongside the comic Batman Year One, which sees a young Bruce Wayne and Jim Gordon in their early years as Batman and a police officer. He also cited films like The French Connection, Taxi Driver, Chinatown, as well as the comic Batman Year One as inspirations for the film, and worked to ensure that this would be his version of the character and world above all else. When I was first brought in, Ben was supposed to be Batman. At that point, I said, look, the only thing I want to do is I want to keep this story not connected to the DCEU. I didn't want to bring in other characters. It seems like Matt Reeves has his heart set on expanding his Batverse without the likes of other DC heroes appearing. I wouldn't put much stock in that. He's okay with bringing in his own versions of these DC characters. You'll see that this could be a huge benefit to these series in the long run, as it would allow more time to focus on developing them and be easier for viewers to follow what's happening. As the landscape of film and television become more linked every year, it sounds like Matt Reeves will offer us something special in the Batman and both of its spin-off shows. Here's hoping he succeeds. He will. So this is interesting, right? Let's go back to the reason I read that article. We didn't stay very long with the Arkham thing. I didn't pre-read it. Probably I should have done. But anyway, he's saying that Gotham PD will focus a lot on Arkham Asylum. Now, this is interesting. How will this actually connect to Arkham Asylum? So it looks like Gotham PD is going to have a lot of time spent in Arkham Asylum. I would assume he's setting up Arkham Asylum in this series because we may actually get a Batman movie totally set in Arkham, which is what I've always wanted, and probably you would like that as well, you Bat stands. I'm going to predict now, because he loves lots of villains in his movies like he did in the first one, and it wasn't overstuffed. It was perfect. But listen to me. I believe that Matt Reeves is setting up Arkham Asylum in Gotham PD to do a whole Batman 2 set in Arkham Asylum, having Batman trapped in there. We know this man's vision is very different to what we've seen and what's gone before it. This will be groundbreaking. This will be amazing. I would love it. And yet, if anyone can do it, Matt Reeves can. The Batman's Paul Dano took 200 takes to film a Riddler scene. Wow. The Batman director Matt Reeves reveals a Riddler scene that took Paul Dano an estimated 200 takes to perfect, many of them at the actor's behest, by Adam Benz of Screen Rant. The Batman director Matt Reeves reveals a Riddler scene that took actor Paul Dano 200 takes to perfect. After a gruelingly long development period, we first saw Ben Affleck attached as writer, director, and star. Reeves eventually stepped in to replace him, and what followed was an elongated production process plagued with COVID-related delays. Now the Batman reboot starring Robert Pattinson in the title role is finally ready to hit theatres this Friday, March the 4th, or today here in Cyprus. Set during Bruce Wayne's second year of crime fighting, the Batman finds the masked vigilante uncovering corruption in Gotham City while in pursuit of a serial killer named Edward Nashton, aka the Riddler, who preys upon Gotham's elite and taunts the GCPD with ciphers and riddles. For the movie's enigmatic mastermind, Reeves and Dano took inspiration from the Zodiac Killer, resulting in a take on the comic book villain that is a far cry from Jim Carrey's over-the-top performance as Edward Nygma in Batman Forever. Can I just say again, Jim's performance is great. I love him. And, you know, this guy is brilliant in a total polar opposite way. You know, you don't have to have a preference. In a new profile by THR, Reeves opened up about filming the Batman with Dano, especially with one scene which took the actor 200 takes to perfect. The scene in question involves the Riddler talking to Batman via video call. To film the scene, Dano was alone in a room with nothing but an iPhone, while the rest of the cast and crew were on the set of a murder scene at Gotham City Hall. The scene ended up taking an estimated 200 takes, many of them requested by Dano as he delivered variations on the Riddler's mania. Read what Reeves had to say about the scene below. You see, there's some sets and on locations where actors are just there to get paid and do their job. And like an episode director of a TV show, mostly, not mostly, but now and again doesn't really give a shit. And they're on a schedule, they have to rush, right? But these people making these films with directors like Matt Reeves, Matt clearly cares deeply, and these guys care about what they're delivering. They get the paycheck, whatever they do, but it's about the art form. You know, it's not their fault they get paid ridiculous amounts of money, right? But this is what I love to hear. He goes, okay, let me try one where I'm off camera and I stick my head in. Let me try one where I'm already sitting there. He's directing this one person play on an iPhone. It was the giddiness that really got to me, calling out the passing time like he was a game show host. He was so inventive and creative. He's also very critical of himself. Dano actually made his directorial debut with 2018's film Wildlife based on Reeves' comments. It sounds some of those skills came in handy while filming a certain scene for the Batman. Yeah, you want to go and see that, by the way, or I don't know, pick it up or rent it or buy it. It's really good. Paul's a really good director, by the way. Yeah, so obviously he was directing himself in this kind of situation. And Matt was loving all this because he wants as many takes as possible to take, you know, because this is why there's so many director's cuts. Not director's cuts we'd want to see, because they have to decide which cut is the right one for audiences and the studio. So it's amazing. Even before the Riddler, Dano garnered a reputation for his twisted performances in There Will Be Blood and 12 Years a Slave. But with the Batman, the actor had the chance to channel that unique wickedness into a big budget blockbuster, which is guaranteed to introduce Dano to a more mainstream audience. While Colin Farrell's Penguin serves as a secondary villain, one that will be getting his own HBO Max spin-off, the film is very much about the psychological showdown between Pattinson and Dano's characters. Early reviews for the Batman began surfacing earlier in the week, with a number of critics lauding it the best Caped Crusader movie since Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight. A comic book film is generally only as good as its villains, so a large part of the Batman's positive critical reception is undoubtedly owed to Dano. It's interesting, saying that a comic book film is only as good as its villain. And Paul is a great villain. Shannon in Man of Steel is a great villain. But when you think about the first Wonder Woman in 2017, the villains were very understated, purposely. But that's still one of the best CBMs ever. So you don't have to have a huge villain to really make a great CBM. Obviously, it helps. But to hear that Paul insisted on all these takes says a lot about Paul, and it makes me respect him so much more. Now, this is a very interesting quote from Matt Reeves and a very interesting article from Alexander Harrison of Screen Rant. This is Matt Reeves responding to the criticism that Batman is too long. So hold on, boys and girls, and however else you identify as. The Batman director responds to runtime criticism. The Batman director, Matt Reeves, responds to the criticism surrounding his superhero film runtime, which clocks in at just under 3 hours. The Batman director, Matt Reeves, responds to criticism of his movie's long running time. The upcoming film from the Planet of the Apes reboot trilogy filmmaker is the first to feature Robert Pattinson as the titular DC superhero, who exists outside the DCEU continuity, in which Ben Affleck has held the role. After experiencing extensive pandemic-related production delays, the Batman is finally scheduled to hit theatres on Friday, March the 4th. As anticipation built for the new superhero movie, much attention was paid to Reeves' directorial vision, which was reported to be very different from most approaches to the genre so far. In the Batman early reviews, which became available on Monday, critics largely confirmed this, hailing the filmmaker for telling a comic book story through the lens of 1970s paranoia thrillers. However, one aspect of the movie that was subject to criticism was its length, with some judging the Batman unable to fully sustain its almost 3-hour runtime, which is the biggest piece of bullshit ever. You can say you don't like long movies. You can say you don't like dark and complex movies, but you can't use it as a rod to hit the movie and the director with. In a new interview with NYT, Reeves largely brushes off these concerns, citing the movie's success with test audiences as indicative of its ability to keep most viewers engaged. Admitting it could look daunting on paper, he assures fans that they won't even notice its length once the film has started, due to its immersive quality. Additionally, he notes that this version making it to theatres is shorter than some of his previous cuts. Check out Reeves' full comments below. Once you see the movie, I think that ceases to be an issue. It's immersive, it takes you along, and it keeps you engrossed. The way it was once longer. Yeah, so he's basically saying before it was a longer cut. We know that he had a 4-hour cut that I definitely would love to see. I can't remember how long the cut was I saw. I think it was slightly over 3 hours. Insane, right? But look, the film I saw flew past. It didn't drag. So while 3 hours certainly qualifies as long, comic book movies audiences are unlikely to be deterred, as the genre has a history of sporting sizable runtimes. Avengers Endgame, for example, also clocked in at 3 hours, while many more end up running at about 2.5. 2.5. A 4-hour cut of the Batman was reportedly tested, and even that might not have discouraged potential viewers. Though it released on HBO Max, Zack Snyder's Justice League was that same length, and fans received it with great enthusiasm. Let me tell you about the consumer. They don't give a shit, right? They couldn't give a damn. Let me explain to you. Avengers Endgame, a 3-hour movie. Avengers Endgame, I think, is actually slightly longer than this cut of the Batman, is was, I don't know if it still is, but I actually think it's the most successful global box office movie of all time. Did the length deter audiences? No. If people want to see something, they don't care if it's 60 hours. They will go and see it. As the old adage goes, no good movie is too long, and it's likely that those who argue that Batman could have used more trimming are also those who found it less agreeable on the whole. Indeed, others have lamented that there wasn't more of this film's world to luxuriate in, and fans who leave their screening with that feeling will have to patiently wait for more installments. Reeves, Pattinson and others have addressed the possibility of a Batman trilogy, but it will likely be one of the two planned HBO Max spin-off shows that reaches audiences first. Yeah, the HBO Max spin-off shows are supposed to keep on feeding us until the second movie comes, and then they'll do the same. But I am predicting, as I said earlier, a total Arkham Asylum movie, right? And I think he's going to call it Batman Arkham, the sequel. So get ready, because if he fucking does that, you lot and me are going to be talking about it for years until we see the movie. And isn't that what it's all about? Do you know what? I'm just going to call Batman 2 Batman Arkham from now on. Fuck it. I'm just going to go along on this tangent. And Matt, if you do see this video, which you probably won't, because I'm a very, very little YouTuber, you can correct me. In fact, I'm going to tag your name on Twitter later and say Batman 2 Batman Arkham. Let's see what if I get a reaction. I always try. I always test the waters. Anyway, the Batman 2 Batman Arkham will release in less than 5 years, promises producer. Producer Dylan Clark promises that Batman 2 will release in less than 5 years, following the elongated development cycle for the first film by Grant Hermans of Screen Rant. Producer Dylan Clark promises that Batman Arkham will release in less than 5 years, following the elongated development cycle for the first film. Co-written and directed by Matt Reeves, the film serves as a reboot of the Batman film franchise and sees Robert Pattinson taking on the titular role alongside Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman, Paul Dano as the Riddler, Jeffrey Wright as Jim Gordon, John Turturro as Carmine Falcone, not Falcone by the way, yeah, Falcone, Andy Serkis as Alfred Pennyworth, and Colin Farrell as Oswald Cobblepot. Before becoming the Penguin, the Batman sees Bruce Wayne in his second year of fighting crime as, hang on, oh sorry, yeah, I didn't stop there, was a full stop, yeah. Oswald Cobblepot before becoming the Penguin. The Batman sees Bruce Wayne in his second year of fighting crime as he discovers a tangled web of corruption in Gotham City while hunting for the cryptic serial killer, the Riddler, targeting Gotham's elite citizens. Reeves, the Batman, is being developed to launch a new shared universe of titles separate from the DC Extended Universe, for which it was originally set to be a part of. In addition to plans for 2 sequels, the film is set to spawn 2 spin-off series at HBO Max, centered on Colin Farrell's Penguin, and a word swirling recently of a Catwoman-focused series being in talks at the streamer. With the Batman currently gearing up to hit theatres this week and already receiving rave reviews from critics, many are looking to the future of the franchise. While speaking with comicbook.com at the red carpet premiere of the film, producer Dylan Clark offered some insight on plans for the Batman Arkham. Though keeping his lips sealed on what audiences can expect from a sequel, he did promise that the Batman 2 Batman Arkham will release in less than 5 years. Clark went so far to say, I will go on record and say it will be less than 5 years. So, I think we are looking at a 3-year gap. I think he's going to do the old George Lucas adage with the prequels. 3 years, 3 years. And that's a very old-fashioned thing to do. But they're going to keep us busy over on HBO Max. When we compare HBO Max, DC live-action content to the MCU content on Disney+, we are getting something amazing here. Elite director James Gunn, Peacemaker, right? Elite director Matt Reeves, multiple spin-offs from his Batman movie. This is amazing. As Clark alludes to in his promise, development of the Batman became one of the more infamous stories in Hollywood, as Ben Affleck was originally set to co-write, direct, produce and star in the solo project for the DCEU before departing due to personal concerns. Reeves was brought on for the film in 2017, though confirmation of Affleck stepping down weren't confirmed until 2 years later. Yeah, we were theorizing about this for a very long time, with the reveal of plans to recast the character and establish its own universe separate from Warner Bros.' still struggling comic book franchise. Though originally planned for a 2021 release, the Batman has suffered numerous delays due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic affecting production. Interestingly, Clark promised that the Batman Arkham will release in less than 5 years, comes shortly after Matt Reeves expressed a desire to not rush development on the sequel and wait to see how audiences connect to the first film. Given reviews have already been stellar for the Batman, which currently sits at an 86% approval rating from critics on Rotten Tomatoes, the future potential for Reeves and his ensemble cast seem to be higher than before. Only time will tell when the Batman hits theatres on Friday. Yeah, the critics have spoken, but now it's time for the fans to speak. General audiences, of course, and Batman stans. And the Batman stans have already gone to see it, understandably love it. So I expect Batman Arkham to come in within 3 years. I do not believe it will be a shorter turnaround than that, because the guy does like to take time with these things. And quite right too, because if you get something like the Batman, why not? Batgirl Set Photo teases Wonder Woman 1984 Easter egg. Oh, terrific, because that was such a great movie, wasn't it? A new set photo emerges from Batgirl teasing a Wonder Woman 1984 Easter egg in the form of a notable Justice League villain hint by Grant Hermans of Screen Rant. A new Batgirl set photo emerges teasing a Wonder Woman 1984 Easter egg in the form of a notable Justice League villain hint. The next film in the DC Extended Universe is set to mark the franchise debut of Barbara Gordon's daughter of Gotham City Police Commissioner Jim Gordon, who joins in her father's footsteps as an officer protecting her hometown. However, when the sociopathic arsonist known as Firefly begins a reign of terror in Gotham, Barbara finds she must step up and defend the city outside of the law as the vigilante known as Batgirl. Leslie Grace is leading the cast of Batgirl in the titular role alongside Brendan Fraser as Firefly, J.K. Simmons reprising his role as Jim Gordon from Justice League and Zack Snyder's Justice League. Michael Keaton returning as Bruce Wayne Batman from The Flash, Ivory Aquino as Alicia Yeo, and Jacob Scipio, Corey Johnson, Rebecca Front, and Ethan Kine in undisclosed roles. Development on the film saw a rocky start with the coming and going of Joss Whedon. Oh, are we really going back that far? As writer-director, and a shift from a theatrical release to HBO Max, but would find its stride with Birds of Prey writer Christina Hodson. Yes, it's because of Christina. It's all because of Christina, yeah. Set to pen the script, and Bad Boys for Life directing duo Aldi El Arbi and Billa Falah at the helm. Batgirl is expected to premiere later this year, but audiences are getting plenty of exciting teasers from the set in the meantime. As production continues on the DCEU film, Twitter account Batgirl Film News has unveiled a new Batgirl set photo. The image shows a van parked on the street with Stag Enterprises logos printed on the sides of the vehicle, teasing a key Wonder Woman 84 Easter egg. Check out the set photo below. So yes, I think it's basically a bus and a van. Stag Enterprises makes surprising appearance on the Batgirl set. Is Simon Stagg set to appear in this film? I don't even know who Stagg is, by the way, so let's read on. Created by Bob Haney and Ramona Fredon, Simon Hagg first appeared in the world of DC Comics in The Brave and the Bold number 57, and has since recurred as primary antagonist to Metamorpho, as well as tormenting the Justice League after having appeared in the animated Jania with the Justice League series. And beware the Batman Stagg would initially make his live-action debut in the Arrowverse with William Sadler portraying the sinister businessman before making his big-screen debut in Wonder Woman 84. Oliver Cotton's version of the character was a business investor of Petro Pascal's. All right, Maxwell Lord, who finds his and his company's downfall at the hands of the film's antagonist and his magical powers, with Stagg targeted by the FBI for supposed tax fraud. Right, so that's 1984, so he would be a lot older, but maybe we'll see him. Not that it's that important, is it? But anyway, With the Stag Enterprises van sitting isolated in the Batgirl Set Photo, it's unclear if the company will properly factor into the film's story or remain simply a Wonder Woman 84 Easter egg, probably an Easter egg. Given prior set photos have seemingly hinted at flashback sequences involving Keaton's Batman and a potential retcon of the 1989 film, they're not going to retcon one of the best Batman films of all time. Please be a journalist. The possibility is there for the upcoming film to pick up Stag's story as left in the prior film. Only time will tell when Batgirl debuts on HBO Max later this year. But of course, it may not be a Wonder Woman 84 Easter egg because this is after Flashpoint. Clearly, we haven't got a date yet, so Wonder Woman 84 could be deleted in the canon by then. So probably best not to make too many assumptions right now. But what I can tell you is they are not going to mess with Batman 89, and that's a promise. When we talk about propaganda merchants, this is a classic. So Jason Keeler said this: he's not the propaganda merchant, but I want to give you an example of what these people do. And I'm not talking about Jason Keeler, but someone quote tweeted him. May 1939, in an issue of Detective Comics, which would later be shortened to DC, the Caped Crusader was introduced as the world's greatest detective, seeking vengeance for the murder of his parents. In 39, it was the Batman, not Batman. Matt Reeves bringing things full circle. Now, this has upset a lot of Snyder fans. Now, I'm not going to tell you this person's name. I actually like this person. He follows me. I follow him. This is not a slight on him, but the mentality that's mistaken. So listen to this. At Jason Keeler, you're probably already well aware that Ben Affleck originally wrote a script titled The Batman. However, execs dumped him at a low point in his life and employed someone else and gave them that title to use. History repeats itself, shitting on people at low points. So, as you can see, this take is totally wrong. Totally wrong. Because Jason Keeler isn't talking about that. Yes, I understand he's trying to give credit to Matt Reeves for calling it The Batman, because Ben was going to call it The Batman. So you could get upset about this and create, a whole propaganda about it. But here's the truth, because you talk about execs dumping Ben Affleck. So why, my friend, if that's true, did Matt Reeves himself say that they offered him Ben Affleck's script, describing Ben's script? They offered Matt Reeves to direct Ben in his movie because it all became too much. You're asking a man to star in the film, direct the film, write the film. Clearly too much for most people. I know Mel Gibson did it, but you have to be a certain type. It was too much for, an alcoholic, someone who's suffering with mental illness, right? So understandably, he couldn't do it. But Warner Brothers and Jeff Johns still tried to get Matt Reeves to do Ben's movie starring Ben. So they didn't dump him. Ben couldn't do it. He was suffering. It was no good, right? That's what happened here. No one dumped him. Ben ultimately paid the price for not being able to get in there and do the movie he wanted to do. Once he didn't want to direct it, just star in it, Matt Reeves came along as a director. That's why they brought Matt Reeves in, to do Ben's movie, right? And that's what Jeff wanted to happen. It was Matt who said, no, I either do my own thing on my own earth, or it doesn't happen. So then they saw another opportunity. Shit, yeah, let's do this, right? So then they binned Ben's project, understandably. But Ben could have still done that project. Ben wasn't in a condition with his mental health or his alcoholism to do it. And there they are, the facts. So you can twist the facts as much as you want. You can get triggered with every single thing you see. But ultimately, it was Ben who came up with the Batman. And yeah, he could have said, oh yeah. But at the end of the day, what Jason Keeler is saying, we're using the original title from the comics. And that's great. So there's no reason to actually get triggered. It's not supposed to be a slight on Ben Affleck. Jason Keeler is an executive. He may not even know that or remember that. He just said something, right? To make it look good, part of the marketing. Do you understand? So before you get triggered with your propaganda, think about that. As I say, the person who said this I have no issues with, but at least choose your battles well. Part of the reason why poor Zack Snyder lost out was through bad propaganda and anger and abuse hailed at Warner Brothers and the people that work at Warner Brothers Pictures. If you want someone to give you something, you ask nicely. This has been Movies TV Mad and the DCEU Daily. I'm Nick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. Like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss this perfection. And the next time I see you, I would have seen the Batman for a second time. But the first time of seeing this theatrical release. I'm excited. There will be a live spoiler review when I get home after my cup of tea. I'm very excited. It's a huge day for me. It's a huge day for the movie. It's a huge time to be a DC fan, and it must be huge to be Matt Reeves. Until I see you tonight with my spoiler review. Goodbye. Au revoir. I'll be the same. See you later.